Okay, class, this is our order of operations, or PEMDAS, PEMDAS foldable, okay? And it talks about the order in which we do things when we have a set of, like, an equation or just a set of problems to work, the order in which we do it within the problem. Okay, so what you do is on this side, we want that please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which is just a little acronym to help you remember parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. So we want that to stick out. So just kind of leave it, and it won't be on that line out there, but it will be in there. Okay, and then you can cut on these little flaps, which I should have already done. Let me do this real fast. And we've got great scissors. Okay, so there we go. So you do parentheses first, and the directions are already written in there. I guess I should have cut all the way. Okay. So the directions are already in there. You do all operations within the parentheses, and you follow the order of operations within the parentheses. So let's do an example. Oh, and I'm sorry, back to the front. I wanted you to write on here at the top, order of operations. Okay, this is our order of operations. Alright, so in here, I'm going to do a couple of examples with you. I'm going to start out here, and then I might have to do one on the outside. But we've got within parentheses 12 minus 4 times 9 divided by 4, and then all of that squared. So in this case, we don't have a ton outside of the parentheses, but within the parentheses, you follow the order of operations. So now I'm multiplying, dividing. We'll talk about these when we get down here. They go together. So you don't have to multiply before you divide. You just go left to right like you would read and do whatever comes first. Same thing with add and subtract. Once you get to add and subtract, you do them together. Okay? So here I've got I do my multiply and divide first. This is a subtract. So I'm going to look at these two numbers in 4 times 9, which gives me 36 divided by 4, which gives me 9. Okay? Now I can bring down this 12 minus 9, and that's still in the parentheses, and then we'll square whatever that gives us. Okay? So then, let's see, use different colors to help. 12 minus 9, we finish off what's in parentheses. I'm going to write that to the side here. That gives me a 3, and then I square it. So 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay? Alright. Then we've got our exponents. I'm going to have to snip that. And snip this one. Okay? Then we've got our exponents. So our exponents are those little guys where we raise something to a power. Okay? And I'm going to do this example off to the side. So you evaluate all powers in order from left to right. So if you have more than one exponent, again, just like you would read, you go from left to right. Okay? So, let me write this one out. I've got 8 plus 7 squared minus 2 plus 3 squared minus 16. Okay, so first we follow our order of operations, so we're going to do what's in parentheses first. So 2 plus 3 gives me 5. So what I'm doing is that's saying 5 squared, and then I'll rewrite everything. This is 7 squared plus 8. Okay? So then I have to, I go left to right when I do this. So 7 squared means 7 times 7, which is 49. Minus 5 squared means 5 times 5, which is 25, and then minus 16. Okay? Now I don't have any multiplying or dividing, so I'll skip to my adding and subtracting. And again, you just go left to right. So 8 plus 49, let's see, that's going to give me 57. 57 minus 25 is going to give me 32. And I'm kind of doing this in my head because I ran out of room. And then 32 minus this last 16 is 16. Okay, so this one, and I could have written it better going like 8 plus 49, that gave me the 57. 57 minus 25, that gave me the 32, and then the 32 minus 16, that gave me the 16. Okay, so that's how the exponents work. Then you do your multiply and divide. So here's some examples with multiplying and dividing. Let's do 32 divided by 4 times 6 divided by 4. So again, it doesn't matter that we say multiply first in PEMDAS, but they actually go together. So whichever one comes first when you're going left to right, you just do it in the order that it comes. Okay? So these are all multiplying and dividing. So I'm going to do 32 divided by 4 is 8. And I recommend to rewrite everything. And then I've got multiply first. 8 times 6 is 48 divided by 4. And then 48 divided by 4, and if you don't know that off the top of your head, that's okay. You just go like this. 4 can go into 4 once, and then 4 can go into 8 12 times. Okay, so the answer to that one would be 12. Okay, I want to do one more on this one. 12 times 5 minus 3 times 20. Okay? So multiply and divide, I've got to multiply right here. 12 times 5 is 60. And then I've got this multiply right here, 3 times 20, which is also 60. So then it comes out to 60 minus 60. Sorry, that doesn't show up super well. Which is 0. Okay, so it's important that you do that and then say, okay, there's another multiply there. Because if you would have done 60 minus 3, you would have gotten something entirely different. Okay, so you multiply and divide everything in there from left to right. So there was a multiply, kind of skipped. And really, this might have been written like this. It just kind of depends how it gets written. But that would have helped you know, oh, I do those two first and then I subtract them. Okay, and then lastly, an add and subtract example is 8 plus 7 squared. And I say an add and subtract example, but really these are examples of all of them. I'm just trying to highlight on the specific thing. Super zoomed in. Okay, so do all addition and subtraction in order from left to right. And again, these just go as they come. But we still follow our... Did I already do this one up here? Oh my goodness, I did. Okay. So scratch that. And we will do 4 minus 18 divided by 6 plus 1. Okay? So I don't have any parentheses. I don't have any exponents. I do have a divide. So I do that first. And 18 divided by 6 is 3. So then I rewrite everything, 4 minus 3 plus 1. And again, here's a great example. Add and subtract to go together. So I don't have to do my adding first and then go back and subtract. You just go left to right. So 4 minus 3, that gives me 1, plus 1 gives me 2. Okay? So again, this should all be a review from 6th grade, and we've been working on this in our math labs. But I just wanted you to have something in your notebook to use if you're ever stuck or at home and lost and you don't have somebody to ask, you have this. Okay, so that's our order of operations review. Now, we worked on, I think this is it. We worked on this today in class. Okay, there's 4 pages to this, and the first page is all added, and we're kind of putting everything from Unit 1 together. So we have fractions, we have decimals, we have positive and negatives, we've got it all. And we really worked on this one together in class today. Now I do want to look at a couple of the word problems together to get you going on these. What I recommend on the word problems always is kind of write out the math that you have to do, and then you can go back and solve it. So like Alex borrowed $12.50 from his friend Danilo. He paid him back $8.75. How much does he still owe? Well, if he owed $12.50 and then he paid him back $8.75, that will tell you how much he has left. So this is a decimal thing, and we line up our decimals. And you have all of this in your notes. And like I talked today, you're flipping back and forth in those notes. Those aren't just notes that we did the one time, and then they're in your notebook just to have them glued in there. You are going back, you are referencing those every time you do a problem. We've been doing so much. We've done decimals, we've done fractions, we've done adding, subtracting, and then multiplying and dividing. And the rules are all kind of different. And I wouldn't expect you to have them all laid out right now and figured out. So what you're doing is every time you're doing a problem, you're flipping to those notes and you make sure you've got the rule down. Because chances are in your head, if you think you've got it, there's a good chance you accidentally got yourself confused. Maybe you think you're adding fractions, but you were accidentally multiplying them. You have to make sure, go to those notes. That's what they're there for. Okay, let's look at this one. So you can solve that one, and then this one. Dee Dee bought an apple for 85 cents, a sandwich for $4.50, and a bottle of water for $1.50. Just wants to know how much she spent. So you're just adding up 85 cents plus $4.50 plus $1.50. Okay? So just adding those up and lining up your decimals again. Like I said, we went over this page pretty heavily in class today, so you should have the majority of that finished. Alright, subtracting rational numbers. So let's look at some number line examples. Let's just look at one of them. Let's look at number 2. Actually, let's look at number 1. Okay, so if I start at -5 right here, and I take away or subtract 4, I'm going backwards 1, 2, 3, 4 to land at -9. They didn't give you a box to put it. -9. Okay? And really, I know it seems funny to use a number line, but sometimes on your STAR test or on your unit test, they give you a number line, and they say which one of these number lines represents -5 minus 4. So you'd have to say, okay, well here they had -5, they took away -4, landed at -9, so it's this number line. Okay? So it's good to be able to know how number lines help you add and subtract. Okay, so now on a couple of these, let's look at together. Just the whole numbers. Now remember your rules. So right now, as soon as you stop subtracting, you should be at, in your notes, oh, I opened right to it almost. Okay. You should be right here. Okay? So when we subtract, here's our subtraction one. What you do is we change it to addition. We just love addition way more. So anytime you see that subtraction, unless it's an obvious 6 minus 4, that's obvious. You don't have to do this. But when we've got positives and negatives and stuff, or you're subtracting a smaller number from or a bigger number from a smaller number, you need to do this. You change your subtraction to addition, and then you change the sign of the second number. So all that means is I changed 4 minus -5. I changed this to an addition, and which we love to do. I love to turn subtraction problems into addition because I would much rather add than subtract. But we can't just do that and then just for fun. That totally changes the problem. So if we change it to addition, we have to change something else as well. And it's the sign of that second number. So that changed from a -5 to a +5. So really, I just said 4 plus 5. Well, that was easy. That just turned into 9. Okay? So that is how, and make sure we're really working on boxing our answers in, okay? So that is a great example of a problem that looks complicated, but is actually super simple. Okay, let's look at some decimal ones. Let's do, there's a good one. Okay, let's look at number 12 together. Okay, so I've got this decimal, or I've got this 4, change that to addition, and then you have to change the second sign. And then this one, change to addition, and then that was a positive, so now I have to make it a negative. Always rewrite, because it can, especially when you're changing signs, it can start to look kind of funky. So we just changed this into 4 plus a positive 0.25. I don't have to write that 0, I can, but I don't have to. Plus a negative 0.5. Okay? As we talked about in class today, just take 2 at a time. So right here I'm just adding up 4 and 0.25, which is easy because those are both positives. So I can give 4 a decimal by adding it like that. And then you have to line up the decimals. So 0.25. I need another 0 up there. You can add on zeros forever. I'm going to add those up. You bring your decimal straight down. This becomes 4.25. Oh, and I should have added a 0 right there. Okay, so that's given me 4.25. Now I have to add in a negative 0.5. Okay, well, they have different signs. Now this is an addition, and they have different signs. So you find the difference of the absolute values, meaning you ignore all the signs, positive and negatives. You just take the 2 numbers and you find the difference of them. Okay? Then you use the sign of the larger number, the larger absolute value, or just the large number. So, which number is bigger, 0.5 or 4.25? Well, this one is obviously, and it's positive, so my answer is going to be positive. Always mark that right away. More specifically when it's negative, but I just go ahead and put a positive sign there anyways. Then you end up finding the difference. So even though this is an addition problem, you find the difference, meaning subtract. Let's write this at the top. And this is going to be worth extra credit right here. We have right here, difference means subtract. Okay? So that's my code right there. When I come around and check, if you've got that, it'll be worth extra credit. Difference means subtract. You can even put your little quotes right there. Difference means subtract. Okay, so when it told us to find the difference between 4.25 and 0.5, all I'm doing is subtracting. Decimals have to be lined up, so I add in some zeros. There. Oh, drop down your decimal right away. And we borrow from here. 12 minus 5 is 7. And 3 minus 0 is 3. So there's my answer, and I already marked that it's positive, so I've got a positive 3.75. And I box it in. Okay. Now I would like to do a fraction one with you. Let's see. We better do number 9 together. Okay. So this is a negative 4 3/4 minus a 3/4. So you can keep it as whole, or you can keep it, you can change it. And I'm going to go over here so I can write big. So I've got a negative 4 3/4 minus 3/4. Okay. So I can keep this as a mixed number, or I could just go ahead and change it into an improper fraction, and we can do that because I think y'all prefer that. So I'll do my Texas or my check mark, whichever you prefer. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19, over, you keep your same denominator. Okay, and this was a negative value. Minus 3/4. Okay, so I've got negative 19 over 4 minus 3/4. So since I have a subtraction, you change it to an addition problem and change the sign of the second number. So I come over here and I change this to addition, and I change the sign of the second number. So now I've got a negative 19/4 plus a negative 3/4. Okay, using my notes once again, when they have the same sign, they're both negative, so they have the same sign. You find the sum of those values, Absolute value, again, just means just ignoring the negatives. You just add them up, and you keep the sign. So my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to go ahead and put that right away. And then I just add up these values. So 19 over 4 plus 3/4. Ignore the negatives. You're just adding them up. When I add fractions, when I add fractions, if I forgot, it's okay because I have notes for this too. I've got, where are my fractions? Right here. Right here. The fractions notes. When I add or subtract them, you find, or now I'm actually adding them, you find a common denominator, you add the numerators, and keep the common denominator. Okay? So I keep my common denominator, and I add my numerators. 19 plus 3 gives me 22. So I have a negative. Put my answer up here, where I already marked my negative. Okay? Oops. Already marked my negative. Now the only problem is that this is an improper fraction because the top number is bigger than the bottom number. So I have to divide, or I can say, okay, how many times can 4 fit into 22? Well, I know it goes in 5 full times, meaning I could take out 20 of those because 4 and 5 gives me 20. And I have a remainder of 2 up top. So I'd have 2 left over out of 4. And then 2/4 can be simplified to 1/2. So I would have a negative 5 and 1/2. Okay. If you don't like doing it this way, that's fine. You can say 22 divided by 4. 4 goes into 22 5 times, giving me 20. Remainder of 2. Then that's your whole number, 5. And then the remainder that you have left over, that's your part, or how many you have out of that same denominator, the 4. So 2 out of 4, and then you can cut both 2 and 4 in half to give you 1/2. And the answer was negative, so it's a negative 5 and 1/2. Okay. Temperature, let's see. These ones right here, okay, the temperature on Monday was negative 1.5 degrees Celsius. The temperature on Tuesday was 2.6 degrees less than the temperature on Monday. So we write less as a keyword. That's going to mean, and in your notes, you glued in at the beginning of the year, your keywords. I bet if we look in, yes, subtraction, less. When we hear the word less, we know to subtract. And look, we wrote that down. Subtraction and difference go hand in hand. Subtraction means difference, and vice versa. Okay, so if I have negative 1.5 degrees on Monday, and then Tuesday it was less 2.6 degrees, that's going to help me right there. That's going to help me solve it. Okay, so I just set that one up for you. Okay. Let's move to multiplying. Okay, these are good to know. I don't want it to confuse you, but this is just another one where it's good. Sometimes they show you a number line representing something like this, so it's good to know how they do that, I guess. So this is just saying if you go backwards 1/2 or negative 1/2 4 times. So if we start at 0, if you agree with me that this is one whole, so a half would be those little tick marks in between. If I go back 1/2 4 times, I'm going to start at 0 and go 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times a negative 1/2 would be negative 2. Okay? And then for the negative 2/3, negative 5 times, well, negative 5 going backwards, that kind of cross goes each other. Also, if we look at our notes for right here, multiplying and dividing, when you've got multiplying with the same sign, meaning they're both negative, your answer's positive. Now this is different from adding and subtracting, so that's why we have notes for specifically multiplying and dividing. Okay, so when they're the same sign, they end up being positive. Okay, so I know that I'm going positive right here, So basically I'm going 5 times 2/3. So if I go, here's 0, here's 1, so if I go in 2/3 there once, 2/3 a second time, a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, I land right there at that's 3 1/3. Okay, and I knew it was going to be positive since there was 2 negatives. Okay, these ones right away, using my rules, I want to go through and identify before I even work on the math if it's going to be positive or negative. Okay, so multiplying when they're the same sign, when you're multiplying, obviously 2 positives is positive, but if I'm multiplying 2 negatives, my answer comes out positive. Different signs, if just one of them is negative, but then the other one's positive, it comes out negative. So going through right here, this is taking a negative and a positive, so my answer is going to be negative. A positive and a negative, my answer is going to be negative. A negative and a positive, negative. A negative and a negative, 2 negative signs can go to make a positive sign. That's a good way to remember it, is a positive. Also, let's do this. Right up here, do your triangle that I taught y'all. A lot of you already knew it. Okay, and do a plus sign up there, and then a minus and a minus. So when you're multiplying, and this works for dividing too, you cover up the 2 signs that you're using, and it tells you the sign that's left is the sign of your answer. So like here, a -2, so cover up a negative, and a positive 3.1, cover up the positive. The symbol that's left is the answer, the sign of my answer. So there's a negative sign left, negative. Here, I'm multiplying a negative and a negative, so I have a plus sign left, meaning my answer is going to be positive. Okay? That's 2 positives right there, so obviously that's going to be positive. And you can finish those. Okay, so let's do one of the decimals together. Let's do, let's see, I'd love to do, I'll do the first one with you. I was hoping there was 2 decimals. Okay, so you put the one with more digits on top, so I've got 3.1 and then the 2. I've already identified that it's going to be negative, so I don't even have to worry about the positive or negative at this point. I'm just multiplying. So multiply like usual, 6. Now my answer is not 62 because you have to move in your decimal. There's 1 number after the decimal there. There's no numbers after the decimal there. The decimal would be right there if I had one. And then, so total in my answer, I need 1 number after the decimal, meaning I come in 1 spot. So this is going to be a -6.2. Okay. Let's do another one. We'll go ahead and do this one. So I already know it's going to be negative, so I don't even have to worry about my negative signs. I've got a 5.4 multiplied by a 4. Okay? And on your decimal notes, you've got notes over multiplying decimals. See if I can find them. Okay? Multiplying, it says the number with the most digits goes on top. That's how I'm knowing how to do that. Your decimals don't have to line up. That's the big thing. Okay? So 4 times 4 gives me 16. 5 times 4 gives me 20, plus 1 is 21. Okay? Now there's 1 number after the decimal there, none after the decimal there. So in my answer, I need 1 number after the decimal. So coming up here, 1, place my decimal. There's 1 number after the decimal. So the answer would be 21.6. Okay? A fraction, let's do 13 together, and I'm going to move to where I've got some more room. Okay? So this is a -7 times a -3/5, let me have that in parentheses, times 15 over 7. Okay? So when I multiply fractions, and good news, you've got notes on that too. That is this one, multiplying fractions. Basically what you do is you just multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and simplify. Okay? So let's go ahead and, well, we can look at these two first. Okay? Well, I'm multiplying two negatives together, so my answer is going to be positive. I put that down first. Okay? And then, to make any number, we've talked about this a lot, to make any number a fraction, I can put it over 1. So I've just made that a fraction by saying 7 over 1. I'm going to rewrite without all this junk. Basically, I'm doing 7 over 1 times 3 over 5. And I just multiply straight across, which gives me 21 over 5. And it was positive. So I've got 21 over 5, a positive 21 over 5. Now I'm going to take the answer to this one and multiply it with this. So I've got a positive 21 over 5 multiplied by, woohoo, this is a positive 2, yay, 15 over 7. Okay, we talked about this in class. You can simplify at the end or you can simplify before you multiply. It's up to you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I can't simplify up or down on either of these, but I can simplify across on both of them. Right here, I know that both 21 and 7 are divisible by 3. So, by 7. 21 divided by 7 gives me 3, and 7 divided by 7 gives me 1. And then I know both 5 and 15 are divisible by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. So I can rewrite this, but basically I'm doing 3 over 1 times 3 over 1. When I multiply straight across, I get 9 over 1. Okay, or just 9. Okay, now, if you don't like it some way, and some of y'all don't, I'm going to rewrite the same thing up here. 21 over 5 times 15 over 7. You just multiply across. 21 times 15 is 5, 10, 1, 2 is 5, 1, 3. It's 315. And then 5 times 7 is 35. And then you would just simplify that and eventually get 9. Okay? Just whichever, if you like to simplify before or if you like to simplify after, it doesn't matter. Okay? You do whatever works for you. Okay, so this one we got, this was a 9, right? Okay, let's look at a landscaper installed 12 sections of trellis. 12 sections. Each section is 3/4 yards long and wants to know how many yards of trellis are installed altogether. So if there's 12 sections and each one's 3/4 yards, we're just multiplying because we're saying, basically we'd say, okay, 3/4 for yard 1 plus 3/4 for yard 2 plus 3/4 for yard 3 forever and ever, or not forever and ever, on until 12. Okay, well really we can simplify that and just say, well let's say 3/4 times 12. Okay, 3/4 times 12, to make 12 a fraction, you put it over 1. You can simplify now or later, but you just multiply across. Okay? Alright, the last, let's see, I made this video a little longer than I wanted. Let's talk about dividing in class tomorrow. So that has helped you. Mainly the big things are adding and subtracting. Multiplying and dividing is actually a lot easier with this stuff. So make sure you've got your adding and subtracting down and your multiplying. This packet is not due tomorrow. I would do a couple practice problems. Start preparing. Your test is Friday. Test is Friday. Let's write that. Test for Unit 1 is Friday, September, what's that going to be? That's going to be the 18th. Okay? So your test is this Friday. So this is all stuff that's on your test. So you don't have to do this whole packet by any means tonight, but maybe go through and do 1 or 2 more problems on each one. Eventually we'll have part of this packet due, and I'll let you know how much is due in class. But get a couple done, mainly just for practice to prepare you for your test. This isn't easy stuff, and it just really takes practice to get good at it. Okay? Alright, see you tomorrow.